The first thing we're gonna do on this car today is remove these air boxes. As you can see, there's... Now what we need to do is go ahead and start taking apart the suspension. I think I'm gonna just, and check this out. It's almost ready for the engine to come out. Now all we need to...
What did you just find?
There's just a clamp right here that's just not going to nowhere. I guess they forgot about it or something.
All right guys, so we got the entire engine out of here. We just slipped it out of there. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're gonna be back to work on our McLaren 720S. As you guys seen in the previous video, we did basically take off all the easy parts. We got the quarter panels off, the rear bumper, the spoiler, and the radiators on the side. Now it's time to start digging into the actual hard stuff, like getting these intercoolers out, getting these air boxes off, so we can finally get this entire engine out of this car and then start swapping it into that. Because right now all we're doing is taking stuff apart. We haven't really been putting anything back together, so it's gonna be getting kind of challenging here soon, but I think we have it. And we took apart some of these lines back here, and it's not as complicated as it looks. You see, you have a couple AC lines, a couple water lines, and these are the brake lines right here. And they were kind of, so these right here were the brake lines, and they were kind of all just jammed up into there, and it just looked like a lot more lines. But as you can see, there's about 6 lines in the back of this car, so it doesn't look too complicated there. But we'll have to see once we start getting everything off of here. And just to get the engine out, we are also gonna have to take off these suspensions, get the axles out, slip them out of the transmission. And I'm not too sure how we're gonna pull this engine out, because I'm pretty sure we can just go down with it and then just slide it back, but I'm not sure. We'll probably have to lift the car up higher in the air. So the first thing we're gonna do on this car today is remove these air boxes. As you can see, there's 2 air boxes on both sides. This one has a little bit of damage, while the air tube has a little bit of damage down there, so we'll end up probably replacing it or repairing it. And it also has the ECU on there, which is kind of weird. I'm not sure why they would put the ECU back here, but it's okay, it's a McLaren. Now let's just go ahead and grab some tools and get both of these off. All right, boss, let's go. Now that we have both air boxes removed, we can go ahead and start working on getting all this wiring out right here and start removing the suspension, because we need to get to the axle and pull it actually out and get these wing supports off. And it's crazy because it has hydraulic lines that go into the transmission. I guess once you put it in sport mode, it activates something in there and lifts up the wing, which is super awesome. So let's go ahead and get the suspension off and pull all these wires off. So check this out, guys. We've got the entire wiring harness off the passenger side and also the wiring harness off the driver's side, and the engine wiring harness too. That's what the ECUs were for. They're simply the engine wiring harness. So that's gonna all stay on the engine once we drop it down. Now what we need to do is go ahead and start taking apart the suspension. I think I'm gonna just try to get this axle out. I really don't want to take everything off because it's just gonna be more work, but I think we'll go ahead and see what we have to do on it. So there's really no way just to get the axle out, so what we're gonna have to do is basically just remove this entire suspension. There's a couple bolts over there, so let's go ahead and get this thing off. So we got both suspensions off, we got the driver's side off and the passenger, and we went ahead and just took it all out of like a complete set instead of like taking off the axle and taking off the control arm separately. It's gonna be a lot easier. And this axle over here is actually completely toasted, I think. It kind of popped out of there and grease went everywhere, so we're probably gonna have to order a new axle. And another thing is our control arm over here is completely just bent like a banana. I think we can get some flex tape, seal it all up, and it will be good. But now what we need to focus on is getting these catalytic converters off, because as you can see, there's an area right here, and you really can't get the engine out if you don't take these off. The engine's just gonna completely slip down. So what we need to do right now is get both of them off. So these catalytic converters are kind of jammed up in here, pretty snug in here, but all it is a couple bolts right there. We've actually already unplugged it from our wiring harness. Now all we need to do is just unbolt it and pull them out. BMW. So we've gotten both catalytic converters off, and now we have a lot more access into here. And check this out, it's almost ready for the engine to come out. Now all we need to do is remove these water to air intercoolers on the side, because as you can see, this right here is gonna stay with the car, and this tube goes completely over the top. So we're gonna have to remove this water to air intercooler, and I think we can go ahead and try to remove this engine. Now that we have both intercoolers off the car, next step is going to be to remove these little plastic inlets, because this subframe right here bolts on and everything's just going to slip down. So now all we need to do is remove these inlets right here. And I think I'm going to go ahead, and there's an access panel in the back of the car. If you can see through here, there's a big old access panel. I think I'm going to take off all these bolts and see what's going on, and maybe unplug any of the other wires. And then we can just simply lift the car up a little bit higher and then unbolt the subframe, and the engine and transmission will just slide right out.
Here that's just not going nowhere. I guess they forgot about it or something.
So I didn't actually have to take off those little intake couplers that go on the turbo on the sides. We just unscrewed them and just folded them up, and they'll easily be able to come out. Now what I'm doing is removing the fuel lines back here, and there's a couple of air lines that I need to remove, and this thing should be ready to come out. right now all we're doing is we just detached the gas lines that go to the gas tank, the fuel return, and the fuel line. And now what I'm gonna do is actually remove some of these fuel lines. The camera really can't see in here, so we're just gonna take all this stuff off. And then I think we need to go underneath and actually unbolt the oil tank, because this is it's a dry sump, so it actually uses an oil tank versus an oil pan. So we'll go under there and unplug all that, and then we can probably drop this thing out, hopefully. So right now we have already unplugged everything out of the engine bay. Now we just need to unplug the dry sump lines. They go into this tank right here. That's pretty cool. There's just an oil tank right here on the side, and there's one line, or there's actually 3 lines, one for the actual inlet where you pour the oil in, and then there's one return from the engine, and then one into there. So all we need to do is unscrew them, and I think we can drop this thing out. Not too sure, we still have a little bit of stuff. It's a bit complicated under here, I think.
Oh, it's complicated?
Yeah, just a bit.
But then I thought you said it wasn't complicated.
All right, guys, so we got the last cable off the alternator and the starter, so that's basically everything is disconnected from the engine. And the last things we need to do is go ahead and remove this reinforcement bar and remove these lines right here off the transmission, because they go directly to the transmission. And then we can set some jacks under there and lower this engine out. So we pretty much have everything off this engine and it's ready to come off. And now the last things we're gonna have to do is unbolt these brackets down here, one engine mount right here, and then this engine's gonna come out with a second subframe. The subframe is actually right here. There's bolts that bolted on right there and right there. So this whole area is just gonna drop down, and hopefully I got everything unplugged. I'm pretty sure I did. There's a couple weird tubes that are just gonna have to slide through, which I think everything should come out pretty smoothly. And this I'm just gonna move in a little bit, because they did use some kind of clamps that you can't really take off. So we're just gonna have to do it like that. And I think we should easily be able to get this thing out right now. So guys, we're gonna throw up a quick time lapse and get this thing out of here. Lift that up. You couldn't have been over here lifting this up like this one.
Well, y'all need some help?
You go forward with it? I just hold down that lower tank. Alright guys, so we got the entire engine out of here. We just slipped it out of there. I wish I would have put this car on the lift, but it honestly wasn't that hard on the ground. There wasn't much things to unplug at the bottom, but check this out. We got this entire beast of an engine out. The transmission looks like it's bigger than the actual engine, and we got everything out without breaking anything. We did have to cut a couple of clamps though. As you can see, some of the stuff is on these clamps right here, and there's no way to unclamp them, so we're gonna have to get a couple of new clamps like that. And basically the engine is out. The next step on this car is gonna be to swap this entire metal or aluminum subframe onto there. We still have to take off the fuel tank and the oil tank right there, but that's gonna be in the next episode. So that's gonna be a wrap for this episode. We got a lot of work done on this car. Work is coming along pretty quick on this thing, and it's pretty crazy. We didn't need any special tools or anything special to get this thing out, which is crazy, but that's gonna be it. If you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and hit that like button, drop a subscribe, turn on your post notifications so you don't miss a single video. Follow us on Instagram and check out videooo.com for some merch.